Hi, good day. Can everyone hear me? You can unmute yourself if you can,
Loud and
or if
clear.
you can. Loud and
Yes,
clear.
I can.
Okay. All right, awesome. So I don't want to hold up anyone's, take up too much of anyone's time. We have a schedule. It's an hour and a half. So there's still a few persons out, but we can definitely go from there. And everyone is able to see the PowerPoint presentation that I have up as well.
Yes.
All right, awesome. All right. Well, again, just want to welcome you all to our Security Awareness Champion training. My name is Rishon Richardson. I am the founder of Ethnotech Services Limited. We are your presenters today. As part of our security program, we are offering this training so that you all and anyone who may be interested in being a part of this training at a future time can be able to be prepared to secure your data and information that you have under your purview. We want to acknowledge, yes, she's on the call, Madeline Lee. She's joining us today from the Chamber of Commerce. And also joining us today, and she had to drop off the call for a bit because she has another call she has to join, is Leslie Skiba from the Cyber Readiness Institute. She will be sharing more information about herself and the Institute at the later portion of this session. But as we go along, we developed this training to raise awareness about how organizations can be able to improve their practice of security and to protect their data. What we're hoping for is that you'll be able to learn how to identify suspicious communications and report it, learn about tools you can use, learn about password, how to manage that, and using password managers, and then also to raise further awareness within your own organization. So we have a bit of a poll, and I'll just launch that poll now so you guys can be able to answer that question as well. But we'll have polls throughout this entire session because we want to make it as interactive as possible, right? So I just launched the first poll. So you can go ahead and begin answering that poll as we go through the slides. All right, to share a little bit of my educational background. As a managed service and security provider, we work with a variety of security vendors to help companies such as your own with your IT and security needs. And as such, I have earned a variety of certificates from a variety of those said vendors. Majority of these certificates fall under cybersecurity and exposure management in general. And also, I have earned a bachelor's degree in software development, associate degree in applied technology, along with some other certificates such as computer information technology, programming, and web software development and support from Brigham Young University. And also, I'm now pursuing my master's degree in cybersecurity. So at Ethnotech Services, we support the annual, as you can see on the screen here on the slide, we support the annual Cybersecurity Awareness Months. And so we've been a champion for the past 2 to 3 years now. This is going into our third year because the Cybersecurity Awareness Month is actually in October. So we try to, for this month and leading up to this month to have presentations like these. I'm going to close the poll if everyone has a chance to answer that already. So I'm going to close that poll now. All right, so like I said, our objectives in this course is to change the way you look at security. We're hoping to be able to help you to become more aware of the things that exist online, tools you can use, and the way cyber criminals, their tactics and the things that they would do to reach out to your employees within your organizations and to you yourself. You may be wondering, why is this important? Have you ever heard about the stories on the internet of companies or individuals having to pay thousands, if not millions of dollars? Well, we're hoping to prepare you against this, right? We're hoping that in some way, we can be able to give you some practical advice that would help prepare you and protect you against these very same things. There's a saying, it isn't if, but when everyone can be hacked. The most important thing to take away from this is that it's important that you learn how to recognize the tactics and learn to report them to the relevant parties. If you are the relevant party, then you have your hands full. This is something that you can bring awareness as well within your own organizations. So before we go any further into the training, we want to make it worth your while. So all participants at the end of the training will have the opportunity to earn a certificate that will be signed by us as well as the chamber, as well as a digital badge that you can share on your social media, as well as you can attach it to your email signature as well. All right, so let's get into this. Have you ever asked yourself this question? Why would a hacker or cyber criminal want to hack my email or my small business? After all, we're from the Caribbean, right? It is found that in the Caribbean, and I'll read some stats here for you. It is found that in the Caribbean, many small, medium, and large businesses still don't have sufficient measures in place to secure clients' data. I'll give you an example. During one of our sessions with a client, we talked about implementing some of these security measures that they needed. They didn't want to listen. A couple months later, their servers was hit by a ransomware attack. Because they didn't take our warning seriously, they end up losing all of that data. Luckily, we were able to recover, as a retail business, we were able to recover their product list, and they were willing to start over. So they understood they've lost all of that data. They now realize, their appetite for risk. They were willing to start over. And now we actually have a variety of solutions in place for them. Another perfect example, not too far from St. Vincent, right in Trinidad, two events in Trinidad, actually. One happened with Trinidad's largest telecommunication provider, TSTT. The attack resulted in theft of personal data belonging to over 30,000 customers, including their names, their addresses, their phone numbers, and even their social security number, right? So that happened as well. Another one was with the Caribbean National Weekly regional newspaper that also had a theft of their newspaper's website and email archives. They had it compromised sensitive information such as their sources and their reporters. The Caribbean experienced 144 million cyber attack attempts just in the first half of 2022 alone. And most of those attacks were actually ransomware. In 2019, the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force warned that the region was becoming increasingly vulnerable to cyber attacks, citing several factors, and I'll share those factors with you. A lack of, there's one of those is vulnerabilities in software and systems. The other one is a lack of security awareness, a lack of adequate security infrastructure, and then, of course, skilled cybersecurity professionals. So now that we have an understanding of the challenges that we're facing globally as well as regionally, let us learn what we can do. And to get started, we need to understand how cyber criminals are getting into your network, right, and your devices. So we'll take a look at social engineering. It is one of the most common ways cyber criminals exploit users. So before we go any further, to give you an idea of what social engineering looks like. So as you can see from the slide here, this was an email that I received this month. As you can see from the email here, let me see if I can bring up a pointer. As you can see from the email, it claimed that I had 62 complaints about my email address and that it was from Google. But if you realize it here and here, this is not one of Google's domains. So how can they claim to be from Google when it's not actually a Google's domain? So this is one of the things that you're going to be learning throughout the session on how you can recognize these social engineering attempts. All right, so we'll cover some of these further into the presentation. So let's look at what is social engineering, right? So when a threat actor uses social engineering, they are using methods to basically exploit you emotionally, giving you a sense of urgency. And oftentimes they even try to build friendships, build rapport with you as well. Um, so there isn't a poll for this, but you can share in the chat if you have seen or have had a lot of these experiences as well from social engineering attempts, whether it's through a website, an email, or whatever it is that you've experienced, right? So there are 5 types of social engineering. For the most part, there are 5 types of social engineering tactics. So there is baiting, mind games, pretexting, tailgating, spamming, and phishing. Because of time, we can't go into details on every bit of this, but we'll cover a few of these. And just bear with me, this is the longest chapter of this session, right? So we're gonna have some fun videos as well from the National Cybersecurity Alliance. They're the ones that are in charge of the Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And basically give you a little background, the National Cybersecurity Alliance is a combination of multiple big names that you may know: Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and a few others from the banking sector as well, who have come together to create this resource for small businesses. So they're in charge of the Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and in these videos they have funny skits that we'll touch on as well. Okay. So let's start off by talking about baiting. So I don't know how many of you are fishers, maybe hunters, I don't know. But just like fishing and hunting, where we use baits to bring in our prey, attackers do the same. They lure us in by dangling objects of value in front of us. Have you ever been in a situation where someone offered you something enticing only for you to later realize that it was a setup, right? You don't have to answer this, but think about it. Let's explore how these seemingly innocent offers can turn into security threats. Let's take a look at this video on baiting tactics and let's discuss how we can protect ourselves against it. So let me use the cursor. Let me play the video. Now, that can seem a little bit, that one seem a bit straightforward, but let's do a poll on it, right? What do you think were some of the red flags in that video, pertaining to the USB? And how could the individual in that video handle the situation differently, right? So while you're working on that, um, it's very simple. That's how simple it is, right? Baiting is that simple. Anyone can, with the right technology, can simply set a trap for you. And once you're enticed by that trap, that's it. You're caught. And it doesn't even have to be a physical device like what you saw in that video where they had a USB on the ground waiting for him, 4 terabyte USB on the ground waiting for him, right? It could be as simple as a streaming website. Now, I'm sure many of you are aware, but there are a lot of streaming websites out there now. So it could be as simple as using one of those streaming websites without you realizing they have so much pop-ups on them. You may have installed something on in your browser that could steal credentials. You may have accidentally downloaded something from one of these streaming sites because it asks you to in order for you to play the video. And there's so many ways that they can trick you. Okay, so now that we have an idea what baiting looks like, exactly. Thank you for sharing that. Never plug in unknown devices. It's that simple. What he could have done is put it when I think I submitted the did I send the yeah send the poll. He could have taken it to IT. I saw that many of you are in IT. IT may have a separate device that is off the network that could be used for testing. I even asked myself the question, yeah, exactly, use a testing system. I asked myself the question, wait, doesn't this guy have endpoint protection on his device? What's going on with that as well, right? So there are things that you can do to avoid some of these situations. Exactly, prefer via a virtual machine. You can be able to run it in just to test it. I mean, that's interesting. A 4 terabyte flash drive on the ground. Who wouldn't be tempted with that, right? Let's look at some of the other engineering tactics, and we have some other polls that we can do as well. So let's look at pretexting. So what is pretexting? It's basically an attacker fabricating a scenario, right? So they can impersonate the IT department, for example. They could be up, they could call you up and like, hello, this is Will Smith from IT. We got some email notifications that your laptop is out of date and urgently need to be updated. We would need to remote in, but we don't have access right now. Can you help us? And so on. They could do something like that. They can call you up and pretend to be your manager or the CEO of the company you're working for, right? You may ask yourself the question, wait, why is the CEO calling me? But because the person is pretending to be someone with authority, you basically feel obligated, your cohorts, into actually helping them with whatever scenario they have. So let's look at some examples of two scenarios of this, and we can answer some questions as well. So let's start off scenario one. Scenario one is a package delivery. An individual receives an email claiming to be from a delivery service. The email informs the person that a package couldn't be delivered due to an address issue and asks for personal information to reschedule the delivery. Now, let's look at scenario two. The A staff member who is responsible for accounts payables receives an email from an external supplier requesting a change in payment details due to a recent bank account switch. The email appears legitimate and urgent, but it's actually from an attacker impersonating the supplier. So let me just end that last poll that we were doing, and let's do a poll on the scenarios, right? What do you think? Oh, there you go, launch it. Right. So based on the polls, what do you think the could be some potential red flags from scenario one? And what do you think the company or organization can do to make sure that these are verified, legitimate requests? Go ahead and submit your thoughts on that, and we can then touch on some ideas. Okay, emails can be verified by IT. That's true. So these are some of the potential red flags that we, before giving out the information exactly, these are some potential red flags that we can look at from scenario one, right? So is it an unusual sender address? So make sure that you check the user's email address carefully. Does it match the official email format from the company that normally sends this email? Because For example, if it's Amazon, you may already receive emails from Amazon, so you know how Amazon usually sends out those emails, right? Exactly. Um, it could be a generic greeting. They don't have your full name. They don't have the detail of that you have on the account, so they may send out a generic email, a generic message or greeting, something similar to like their customer instead of actually addressing your name, right? And then another red flag, final red flag on this one, will be misspelling or poor grammar. So the email could have poor grammar, is not written well. Now, this last one, um, threat actors are actually getting smarter at this. They're using AI for a lot of these things. So it's reducing the amount of grammatical errors that they have as well. And so they can just imitate some of these messages that you would actually get from those legitimate companies. Looking at scenario number two, right, with the supplier, what could they have done? What strategies could they have put in place? So let's look at some of those things that they could do. One, they can establish a strict approval process. So making sure that anything that needs to be approved receives the correct amount of authorizations from the persons who need to authorize it before making those changes. They can educate their employees, so similar to how we have this session now, where we're educating. Yes, have a list of illegitimate suppliers. Yes, and their emails, their names, all of those things. Yes, you can definitely do that as well. And then you can also monitor and review the request. So every request should have someone who is monitoring it and reviewing it, making sure that it has all the ticks, that everyone who needs to tick on it needs to tick on it and have they ticked on it, and so forth. They can be able to do that. So far, I hope this is all enlightening for you. That if you weren't aware of this before, this is definitely some of the tactics that they use. I see someone had a question. We'll try and get to the questions at the. Okay, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, you should send a person should not send a personal information unless you verify the message you receive. Correct, correct, exactly. So yeah, so definitely. So let's take a look at some other tactics, right? So this is a basic course. This is meant for you to have an idea of what the threat actors are doing and how you can, be able to recognize those things. So that's why we're not going too deep into everything, but we're trying our best to be able to cover as much as we can. So moving on to spam and phishing. So let's discuss what is phishing and what is spam. So what is spam? Spam typically refers to like an unsolicited or unwanted message. These are usually sent via email, a text message, maybe something on social media. Phishing is basically a type of cyber attack where they would try to deceive you into providing them with your credentials, so your username, your passwords, your credit card numbers, any other thing that they can be able to get from you. So maybe they could steal your identity. Maybe they can pretend to be you. Maybe they can get into your accounts and do whatever they want to do, right? So there are three types of phishing attempts. We have one, the URL link. So this basically is a prompt they would send you via email or wherever they send it to you, so that you would click on the link, it would direct you to a website or automatically download something. Sometimes that happens. And then the website would ask you to put in your credentials, so your username, your password, right? And once you've done that, they now have your legitimate username and password to the actual website. Two, there's the credential attack. So this basically prompts you for the very same thing, the username and password, to access those websites. So basically, it's similar, right? But the URL link is more than just a credential. It actually allows them to download malware on your system too. So that's why it's a separating. And then third, we have the attachment. So the attachment basically, as I said, is if it's an email that I sent to you with an attachment, you click on the file, you download it, it may contain a payload for malware that you open that file, it infects your computer. Um, Ransomware is prevalent with this. And then boom, you no longer can access your files, and they may have even logged a backdoor into your system that they can use later on, right? So they usually do this through PDFs, other types of documents that they can be able to send to you. And as you can see, they actually combined baiting and pretexting with phishing, because maybe they bait you with something that you want to download, or they pretend to be someone in authority to get you to download a file or to click a link and so forth. Let's look at a video that covers some of this as well. So the kind of the kind of jokes that we do enjoy in the IT field. But what are some of the red flags that this employee could have recognized in the email? Before he actually clicked on that phishing email and actually caused himself to have to pay money to be able to get access back to his data just to watch a video. What are some of the things that you think that he could have recognized? You can share some thoughts in the chat. But looking at the video, I don't know if you noticed it. Let me see if I can bring it back here. So we have, for one, this from address. Two, misspelling here. Okay, sorry, you're not seeing. I was told you're not seeing the screen, but basically he could have seen the from address, the grammatical errors, the subject. There's so many things that he could have recognized that would have caused him to be to the for the red flags to go up and say, hey, this actually does not seem like a legitimate email, right? So it's that simple. We can get tricked very simply by you know clicking on urgent and threatening language. That's true. We can get tricked very easily by these spam and phishing emails if we don't know what we're looking for, right? And so let's go into some of those things that we can actually look at to be able to recognize these things. So if everyone is seeing the slide here still, we can see from this very sample phishing email, you can take a look at some of the things that you can actually look at. So for one, you can look at the sender. So is it a legitimate email? Is it coming from who you expect it to come from? Right? Two, you can look at the subject. Does it have urgency? Does it has an emotional appeal to it? Okay. Does it have any grammatical errors? If you notice, it has notification or however that is supposed to be pronounced. So it has those grammatical errors in it as well. One of the ways you can actually look at a link before you actually click on it and know if it's actually going to the legitimate website is by hovering over that link. So if you take your mouse and you hover over the link, you will be able to see the URL of that link. Now in the slides, let me see. In the slides, once I hover over the order 3 to 5, it shows you Ethnotech Services Ethnotech Services website. So it's ethnotech.co. It shows our website instead of the actual website for whoever is doing the delivery, just as an example, right? And then finally, it may solicit information, personal information or sensitive information. So in this case, it's asking for the username and the password to be able to verify the account. So let's look at some of those sample, emails right here. These are actual emails that you can find, like sample emails you can find online. These ones actually came from Proofpoint, where they're showing you the very same thing I mentioned before in this, where you hover over the link. But even as maybe you click on the link, let's say that you have clicked on that link and it takes you to the landing page or the website of that email that the threat actor is trying to get you to go to. It is not too late to stop. What you can do is you can assess the URL of this website. Now, does this URL look like Microsoft actual website URL? Maybe, maybe not. So you need to actually look at those things as well. And then even if you have already put in your credentials, maybe you've put in your email, you've put in your password, it is not too late. You can actually still alert IT, alert whoever you need to alert so they can be aware of this, because this may not be the only, you may not be the only person within the organization that has received this email. So it's important that you alert those in authority so they can be able to inform everyone else in the organization to look out for this email or look out for similar emails to this one, right? So it's never too late. Don't ever think it's too late to report it. Report it. As you report it to IT can then go and change your credentials. They can go and change your password at least, add other security layers so that, and we'll get into those security layers when we get to the password side of things. But they can be able to do what they need to do to prevent access to your account. So it's never too late to actually reach out to them. All right. So we're coming to the end of social engineering. But before we end social engineering, we wanted to touch on ransomware. And then we're going to look at 3 tools that you can use to kind of give you a heads up on what is out there for you. Exactly. A lot of them don't ever come forward because there's a bit of a shame culture in coming forward, and we see that in why even larger organizations don't ever come forward. I remember reading about, I wonder if it was Central Bank or some other agency. There was a lot of people speculating that had a cyber incident, but they didn't come forward. They didn't say it was a cyber incident. They just said it was a technical issue. And then later on, they said that there was a cyber incident. I think it happened. There was one that happened in Jamaica as well. Um, I have to get my facts straight. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head, but I know there was one in Jamaica as well that happened. An organization, um, an entity didn't want to come forward, and then eventually they had to. Right. So, with ransomware, as you may all be aware already, it is a type of malicious software. So, ransomware, once it gets on your computer, it encrypts your computer. Sometimes it may encrypt your network, right? It just depends, well, your devices on your network when I say that, right? So it causes you to be in a position where you now have to go and pay thousands, if not millions of dollars to recover that data. And there is a fact now that these encrypted files, they if I let me get my facts on that and I'll share it with you guys afterwards. But I remember reading there was a an incident where the backup was also encrypted. So you can even restore from your backup, even if they say they encrypt your servers, you want to restore from your backup. The backup was also encrypted. And I like to get my facts straight. So I'll share those with you as we go into it. But there are a lot of companies out there that are susceptible to these types of attacks, even the big giants. Um, I know Microsoft has its days. Amazon, Google, Facebook, everybody has its days, right? So as I said in the beginning, it is not about if, but when. And these guys have the money to actually put into their security. So definitely you want to consider that we're not immune in the Caribbean because we say we're small entities and we're from the Caribbean. So let's look at some other things that threat actors use as well. So let us look at some of the tools that as I mentioned them. Right, there are three tools that we could actually look at. Um, let's look at the first tool. The first tool we're going to look at, and I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Have I been pawned? So I'm going to share. Let me share my screen so you can see how this works. Let me know if you're not seeing my screen, okay? Okay, I think you're seeing my screen. So let's look at my personal Gmail account. Have I been pawned? Yes. I've been in 13 data breaches in the past couple of years from my personal email. Now, these breaches actually came from a lot of well-known companies as well, right? So we have Canva in 2019, Animoto in 2018. Let's see what else. We have R2 in 2017, SitePoint for a lot of developers out there in 2020, Trello just this year. Trello just this year it happened. They have my email address, my names, and my usernames. Thank goodness they don't have my password, but whenever there's a data breach, I always change my password, right? So if you take the time and you look at this website and you assess your email addresses, you can actually see which ones have been in data breaches and which ones have not. And then you can then make the necessary changes that you need to make in order for you to protect your credentials online, protect your information online, so you can actually change your password. Let's look at the next tool. The next tool is Whois. So do you remember at the beginning I mentioned there was an email that came to me concerning um, Google. They claim to be from Google. Well, let's actually look at that. So looking at my screen, um, We're going to look at who is, and we're going to look at this email, this domain actually. So it is yandex.ru for Russia. So let's actually, oh, it did not, I did not put it all the way in. So let's do that. Yandex.ru. And this is going to ask me to verify cars. Don't see any more cars. Oh, there's a car here. Car here. Come on. There we go. Right. So with this information, we can actually look at when um, the address, the IP address, what is the domain name, who owns the domain name. For the most part, this one is redacted, so none of the information is listed. And you can look at the name servers and so much more, right? So you could actually use this to determine if a domain name that you see an email actually came from the company that you're expecting it to come from. Or actually the company owns it, right? You can actually look into that. If it's not redacted, that is, you can actually look at that. When it was created, when it was registered expiration date, and so much more you can look at. The final tool that I want us to take a look at, let me know if you still see my screen, is VirusTotal. So with VirusTotal, you could actually look at files and URLs to see if they are infected or if if in case of URL, if there are breaches. So I'm going to give you guys an example of that. So I'm going to look for a file on my computer. Let's look at tools. And it's going to check the hash, and then it's going to look at all of these different security vendors and their analysis of that particular file. So you can then look at whether this file is a virus file, a file that has a malware inside of it. Now, not all security vendors have been able to process the file, as you can see here. But for the most part, you can see all of these other vendors, including some pretty big names. We have Sophros, Sentinel-1, we have Trillex, Trend Micro. I thought I saw Fortinet here, Fortinet right here, and so forth. And you get the picture, right? You get the picture. You could actually look at this, use this tool to actually look at files. So if you're unsure of a file, you don't want to open it up, you can use VirusTotal for that. I mean, there are other tools, but these are some of the free tools that you can use out there. Even just looking at URLs. So let's say that I want to take a look at my domain. And you can see there are no security flags with our domain, right? We're clean. There's a few of them who have not been able to raid us, but for the most part, we're clean. So this is a very useful tool for your organization to take a look at your domain as well. Let me just share back my presentation. I think my camera is not working again. And that's a very embarrassing picture to keep up. Let me just take that down. Yeah, so you've seen some pretty useful tools. I just wanted to cover on how to avoid social engineering. There are a few things that you can actually look at. Never share sensitive information, for one, right? Never use drives and disks you see laying around. Don't ever click on links or download attachments from unknown senders. And if you receive a suspicious email, report it. And that's basically how you can be able to protect your organization against social engineering. All right, so bear with me, these are a lot shorter. So we're going to go through them as quickly as we possibly can. So let's look at passwords and password management. So we basically use passwords every day, right? Every one of you have passwords on all of your devices. whether it's a password, a passphrase, a PIN, a pattern. You lock your device, you lock your sensitive data. You want to make sure that that data is not out, that anyone can see it. Now, password strength is very important. So let's take a look at a matrix that actually covers password strength. So as you can see from this matrix, and you can actually find matrices online. I think they change often, but um, as you can see from this matrix, if you wanted a very strong password, for example, you would need at least 18 characters, and it should be mixed with numbers, upper and lowercase letters, and symbols. And it will take a hacker a very long time to brute force your password, right? Speaking of brute forcing, the hackers utilize these tools so that they can be able to break into systems for those on the call who may not be aware. So they use these tools to break into your system. And the way they do that is they use files called dictionaries or lists called dictionaries, which have lists of passwords within them that can be found online through breaches. So on the dark web, they have the all passwords that are found through a breach. They have those available, so you can actually use those to brute force into someone's device. And so just like how you checked with have I been pawned, and you may have seen your email has been exposed, you may you may not realize it, but the password you may have used from that is now making up a dictionary, right? Is now making up that list. So just be aware of that as well. But for you to have a password with 18 characters in length for not just one site, but 100 sites, 100 applications, 100 devices, that's impossible, right? Even if you just do 8 characters, for the most part, we don't even remember an 8 character password. So what can we do to be able to help us with that? And before we even get further into that, let's look at another video at the Cyber Alliance. All right, so because of time, we won't go to the very end, but that's pretty much it, right? So let's just outline what was said are the best practices in basically in that video. So never repeat your password. Um, Make sure you have passwords for different sites, application devices. Make sure you have passwords for different passwords for everything. Change your password as often as possible. And I think we had a poll for that. Um, I will try and get that poll out. But change your passwords as much as possible. Let me see if I can get the poll. Yeah, there it is. Right. Right. So change it as frequently as possible. Some companies have different policies on it. So it depends on the company you're working for, right? And then since we mentioned password managers, as it was mentioned in the video, um, look at getting a password manager. You don't want to try and remember passwords for every site, device, app, everything that you want to use. Get a password manager for it. The password manager would help to encrypt the password safe, and everything that you need would be in there for you. It can actually create very strong passwords as well for you, matching the same password matrix. And then finally, look at getting a multi-factor authentication for, I would say, every application, every software device, um, as much as possible. For us, we have multi-factor for every application that we use, every cloud-based application that we use. Um, and we also try as much as possible for our user management to be able to have multi-factor as well. Okay, so make use of those. And so, like I said, these last bits are pretty short. Remember, you are the first line of defense. So learning to use password effectively is for everyone's safety. Let's look at data protection. So how do you determine if data is meant to be kept private and confidential? Well, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. It is any information that belongs to your customers, your coworkers, and anything that is considered intellectual property. It should be treated private and confidential. So it should be top priority to protect those sensitive information from data breaches, because you don't want to be a company that has to spend millions or thousands of dollars just to be able to recover your data from a ransomware or anything. So here are some tips that you should keep on top of your mind. One, be mindful of where you store the information. Very important. Be mindful of where you store the information. Two, don't leave documents or drives containing sensitive data unattended, right? Many of us in this on this call is in IT, myself included. So you may have a server room. Make sure that the server room is well locked. Not anyone has access to it, and so forth. Don't remove physical or digital data from the premises without permission, right? Um, if any and anyone could walk with the files that's on the file server home, then we have a big breach, right? That's a problem. That's maybe a violation of policies. So look at that as well. Only use cloud services for data storage if they are approved by your organization. And then we also have be aware of visual attacks. Now, I'm sure many of you have seen this as well, but when you're in public transportation, everyone is on their phone and somebody opens their phone, you see the pin that they punch in. Or they're looking at a document, you can literally read the document from the side of your eye. So be aware of your surroundings as well when you are looking at sensitive information. Use computer locks, lock your screens, lock your files, encrypt everything. Use a cabinet to lock physical files, do all of that. And then finally, close sensitive documents and tasks before web meetings. Or like what I did, I used a different browser to share the tools, so you actually don't see what I actually have open on my other browser, right? So you do things like that. So because of time, we're gonna skip this next video, but I would just add, and I'll share all of this with you all. Don't make it difficult for the IT team. An IT team, if you're part of the IT team, make it as easy as possible for the staff and everyone else to be able to report to you and to seek your guidance. Let's look at data destruction. So there are some really great tips for data destruction as well, because it's not enough just to be able to protect the data. When you no longer need it, what are you going to do with it, right? So um, data destruction, you want to be able to, for digital data, you want to be able to delete it from your computer. But it's not enough just to delete it from the recycle bin. There are software out there that specialized in data wipe. So you can make use of those software. Some are free, maybe open sourced. Some are paid. It's something that you would have to bring up with management, see which ones they want to make use of. But basically, a data wipe software, what it does, it writes over what is on the drive, and with random data patterns, it just so that it makes it more difficult for it to be recovered. Because by just deleting from the recycle bin, you can actually use another software to just recover, right? So if you no longer need access to a particular file, a particular um, drive, you can use the data wipe software to help get rid of the data on those. And then for physical documents, get a shredder. Shred those documents. You don't want to have those documents just thrown in the trash, because someone can just go and read them, right? And then we're even looking at credit card statements, contracts, forecasts. You don't want to have those things just thrown in the trash. You want to make sure that they're shredded before you actually get rid of them. So make it more difficult for people to actually just go and dumpster dive, right? And of course, it depends on your company's policy and the legislations that you need to follow. And these are just some of those policies and legislation that you may need to follow. This link actually takes you to the www.coe.int link, takes you to just gives you like a brief overview of St. Vincent's cybercrime bill. So that's something that you may be interested in as well, so I put that there. And of course, like I said, we'll share the link. And we're finally at the end. We've made it to the last section of this presentation, right? So the last section has to do with critically software updates and patch management. So let's look at some of the benefits and best practices. So put simply, patch management is updating software, drivers, firmware, whatever you need to update to protect against vulnerabilities and against threat actors like hackers and maybe malware exploiting it, right? So the thing is, software, when it's built, it can also then be built with bugs that go unnoticed by the company or the individual that build them. One example, and I'm not sure how many of you are aware of it, but there was a global outage that took place. It particularly affected every organization that made use of, I think it was CrowdStrike Falcon. As it was claimed online, a new CrowdStrike hire pushed an update out that had a bug into the CrowdStrike Falcon ecosystem, and it's basically updated on every system that had CrowdStrike Falcon, which caused a blue screen of death. No one could have worked. It was pretty much all over Twitter. It was all over the internet. But thankfully, the tech community came together. Those who found the workarounds shared those workarounds. which was similar to basically, going into the operating system and removing a particular file, and then you were able to access the Windows. And all of this happened until CrowdStrike was able to give a permanent solution. So the question is, how do you update your systems and avoid that, right? This is just an example of one of those companies that actually went through that. This picture was taken from Forbes.com, where they pretty much, airlines were affected. There was a lot of people that were affected, right? So let's look at some of the best practices for patch management. All right, so you need to first realize how important it is to update your software and firmware for your devices. It can be inconvenient for the users, but it must be done. 2, make the patch management process as predictable and routine as possible for the users, right? So if they are aware of it, they can then better plan for it, and then they can allow you to do your job, right? And it does not affect their productivity. 3, you want to patch in smaller segments. So you don't want to patch the entire organization, and then there's a bad patch, and you don't have time to roll back, especially going into the weekends. I know for a fact that whenever I do something, I don't like doing it on a Friday, because it means that my weekend is going to be busy. And so I rather do it maybe sometime midweek, and maybe a Tuesday or Wednesday. So I have some time to see what happens, right? So try to do something similar to that as well. 4, you want to, outline the structure within your organization. Who is responsible for patching? Now, if you're a small business, then that responsibility may fall on the owner of the device, if it's a single person. If it's a small business but have a few employees, it may fall on the employees themselves to also do some patch management. Let them not ignore the message from Windows that says a new update, restart to update, right? Don't let them ignore that for the most part. But at the same time, like I said, the previous number 3 counts. Try to patch 1 or 2 devices first, see how it affects it, and you can patch the others. And then finally, you can actually use software to help you with this. Yes, they can be annoying. Yes, they can be annoying. That's a fact. But what is more annoying? Isn't it more annoying to have a vulnerability on your system that it can be exploited? And we've seen, I'm not sure how many of you follow like websites that have like CVEs, common vulnerability and exposures. There's a lot of there seem to be a lot more 0-day um, I guess vulnerabilities out there in the wild. There's a lot of researchers that are finding them, but there's no stopping a cyber criminal from also finding them, right? So it's important to have patches done. I think there was um, a hacking conference. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but they at the conference they actually mentioned to Microsoft there was a vulnerability, and it took Microsoft a while to actually patch it. So that's something you have to be aware of as well. Sometimes the vendors don't get around to actually sending out a patch for a vulnerability that they find, a researcher may find, because they haven't found a lot of actual cases in the wild. So that's something that you can be aware of too. But you can use software, as I was mentioning, you can use software to actually help you with this as well. I think we have one more poll here, and then well, 2 more polls, and then we'll basically wrap up with the polls. This is the last poll for the last thing of the slide. But yeah, so those are basically the benefits and the best practices. The benefits include helping to improve productivity, reducing the device cost, and helping you to meet laws, right? those are the main three benefits. And as I said, I will send the slides so you can go over those. I want to make time for Leslie to also share from her end and then to answer questions you guys may have. So to wrap up, we've learned a lot on, there was a lot on social engineering, right? And then we touched on passwords, password management, data protection, patch management, and so forth. Some main points of some key takeaway includes threat actors will take advantage of you if you aren't aware of their tactics. So, they use social engineering tactics to try and get you to expose your system and data for their taking. And there are different types of social engineering tactics. I I think we mentioned this a lot in social engineering, but I would repeat it here as well. It is a known fact that the most prevalent vector of attack for threat actors, and especially for social engineering, is email. So if you recognize an email or you don't recognize an email, I mean, and you think it might be a social engineering or phishing attempt, report it to the relevant authority and so forth within your organization, right? To pay close attention to your password length, that would help reduce how long it takes to brute force it. How Pay attention to how you manage it. Never repeat the same passwords. Make use of password vaults. You're not going to remember your password, so it's going to force you to repeat the password. So don't do that. Use a password vault, right? And then, of course, use multi-factor authentication. 3, you are responsible for the data that you store and use. Those very same legislations and laws that I mentioned earlier, there's GDPR and so many others, HIPAA. If you're in medical arena, they're serious, right? You can be charged as well. And now I'm not saying that in St. Vincent we would be charged. I'm not sure how that all plays in unless you have clients overseas as well, maybe. But follow the same guidelines. That's my best advice I can give you. Follow the same guidelines and just do your best in that. Be careful with the data that you have and how you actually protect it. And then, of course, keep all your software up to date. This will help to reduce errors and exposures in your system, and it would increase productivity, spend less money, and actually buying hardware. Because if you don't, maintain your systems, they tend to break down. So yeah. So those are the key takeaways from our slides. I have one more poll that we wanted to just throw out there. So we're hoping that everyone will take the time to just answer it. It's just a really a simple rating poll. So please do take the time to just answer that poll. Um, it has been a pleasure sharing my knowledge on these subjects with you guys. Um, I know this has been really basic knowledge, but it's there to just build your awareness and help you to be able to put more into your own investigations. And we work with organizations like yours to build their own security awareness programs, as well as implement technology that would help, right? So again, just wanted to thank the chamber for sharing this with everyone and allowing us this opportunities to share with you. Saw someone had wanted to unmute and maybe wanted to share something. Thank you. Am I saying it name? Is it Malk or is it Malcolm? Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate that. So just to wrap it up, we will now turn the time over to our friends at the Cyber Readiness Institute. Leslie Skip, are you on with us still?
Hello, yes, I am. I'm
All right,
going
so
to
let me stop
share my
sharing.
screen briefly. Hello, everyone. I am Leslie Skiba. Can everyone see my screen? Sometimes Teams takes a minute.
Yes, I can see your screen as well.
Okay, great. So I'm Leslie Skiba, the Global Director of Outreach and Partner Engagement for the Cyber Readiness Institute. I won't take up a lot of your time, but I did want to give you a little bit of background about the Cyber Readiness Institute, what we do, and the resources that we have that are totally free for you to use. I do know that Ray Shorn has gone through the cyber readiness program, and I could see in his presentation that a lot of what we talk about in the cyber readiness program was included in today's presentation, specifically the multi-factor authentication and the software updates. I'm so glad that you spent so much time on that. And then also the social engineering side of things, because at the end of the day, people are really the issue when it comes to cybersecurity and cyber readiness. So I'll just give you a little bit of background about the Cyber Readiness Institute. We are a nonprofit, and as you can see on the right-hand side, these are some of the member companies that we have that support us and help drive our content. All of our content is totally free to use. You can access it at becyberready.com or the cyberreadinessinstitute.org. We have a free online self-paced program that takes approximately 2 hours to complete. And once you've completed it, if you're interested in completing a playbook and having the Cyber Readiness Institute review that playbook, we're happy to do that. But I'm also sure that Ray Shorn's group would like to help walk you through playbooks as well. So this is just a little map of where we have users for our program. The yellow indicates that we have users for the program, and the green indicates where most likely myself or virtually myself have had boots on the ground. So I do a significant amount of traveling, and I really love going out and giving presentations to different businesses as well as local governments. And I work really closely with chambers of commerce across the world. So Ray Shorn really talked a lot about cybersecurity, and what CRI focuses on is the human behavior side of cybersecurity and knowing what to do if and when an incident occurs and creating policies that are practical that you can really implement almost immediately within your organization. And sometimes that sounds quite intimidating, but we offer all of our resources for free, number one. And number two, we offer templates for all of our resources. So we're not going to tell you to go out there and make this crazy password policy without giving you the exact things to put in that password policy. But then it's on you to really implement it within your company. And our approach really focuses on having one person within your organization. It does not have to be an IT person because not everyone has IT in-house. It could just be an HR person or a CFO, someone that has the ability to talk with everyone within an organization to drive change within that organization and get everyone to understand the policies that are getting put in place and really roll that out. So where Ray Shorn talked a lot about the technicality of things, even though it's fundamental technical sides, we talk a lot more about driving that cultural change and making sure the policies make sense for everyone within your organization. So I mentioned briefly the core four issues that our program is focused on, and Ray Shorn covered a number of these throughout his training, and I thought it was really well done. So thank you for letting me sit in on that. So all of these things are covered within our program. And really, at the end of the day, the cyber leader's mission is to help put a proper plan in place to help your organization be prepared for if and when an incident occurs. So with that, I will just pause here to see if there are any questions. The link is here. My email is here. Feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any questions. But thank you so much for letting me pop on and talk to you all for a minute.
Well, thank you so much, Leslie. Appreciate that as well.
Problem.
So do we have any questions?
And if you think about questions later, don't hesitate to reach out and reach out to me via email.
All right. Well, if we don't have any questions, or if you don't really want to unmute yourself and speak, you can always just use the Q&A or the chat. We'll give it a couple minutes, maybe 2 minutes, and if anyone has any questions, they can just share. If not, we would wrap up. All right. I guess we don't need a full 2 minutes. No one rush into the mic. So I guess we don't have any questions right now, but as we said, we will share the presentation with you all, and we'll share Ms. Kiba's information as well. And of course, as she mentioned, we are here to help you through your playbook, as well as maybe it's your small business that don't have an internal IT. We can also assist you in any way that we can with that as well. It was a pleasure having you all on this call, and we look forward to future participations and other things that we can do to help further the cause and security awareness. All right. Talk soon.
Thank you.
Yes, we would be sharing the slides. All right. I hope everyone have a good evening.